So hello, I am currently in a very remote part of Lincolnshire that borders the sea called the Lincolnshire Marsh. It's an area of the country that I actually grew up in. I grew up about 10 miles from where I currently am. And I'm currently at the Church of All Saints in Theddlethorpe. Now I've known this building since I was about 9, maybe slightly earlier, and it's one of those buildings that got me really interested in medieval art and architecture. I'm going to take you on a little tour of the inside and you'll realise why. It's a very, very special building indeed. So here I am. I have got the extremely large key to the door and we're going to go in. Now, this is the sort of church you most definitely smell before you see it. Oh gosh. I hope you can sense my excitement. I just love this building. It's one of my favourite, it's still one of my favourite church buildings anywhere. It's currently cared for by the Church's Conservation Trust. Well, I say cared for. I have never seen so many bat droppings in my entire life. This church is entirely covered with a thick layer of bat droppings. But let's not be too bothered by that. So I'm going to give you a little guided tour of the interior here. So I'm going to start at the west end where we can get a full view of the church looking east. So I'm just moving to the west end of the church and then you'll get that full glorious vista looking east. You can see there's an old bell frame there. It's the old medieval bell frame that they took down. This church has long been redundant. It's been redundant since the 1970s because basically nobody actually lives around here. It's a very sparsely populated part of Lincolnshire. But it wasn't in the Middle Ages. It was a wealthy part of Lincolnshire. Being close to the sea, there was lots of coastal trade, lots of good arable land here, and lots of pasture. And consequently, a large concentration of extremely grand church buildings, of which All Saints is one. Just looking east here. The building is essentially very late 14th century. It's perpendicular in style. There was a church here before, so you've got these perpendicular arcades of the late 14th century, probably 1370s or 1380s or thereabouts. Let's look at both of these. But if you look up above the arcade, there's a clerestory above, there are the remains of Norman chevron patterned stone built into the clerestory walls, evidence of an earlier church. The great glory of this church is a complete set of late medieval screens. You've got the rood screen in the centre, and then the east end of both north and south aisle is enclosed by parclose screens. Now, the word parclose means to partly closed, so they're partly enclosed by these screens. Now, Professor Pevsner would have you believe that these screens are from the 1530s. But I did a bit of work 20 years ago on these, particularly the heraldry and the donor images that are on them. We'll have a look at those in a bit, which suggests, in fact, they're not from the 1530s at all, but probably from the 1550s, from the reign of Mary Tudor, which makes them really very interesting. So we've got one on the south and one on the north. And I'll have a closer look at these in a moment. So there's the rood screen, which is 15th century, typical of Lincolnshire Marsh rood screens. Now, Lincolnshire didn't go in for all the painted figurative work on dados. So with loads of medieval colour on this, as you can see. But it's really very simple, sort of a simple counterchange. So red alternating with green panels. There's quite a lot of it. If you look, it's still got its doors on it. Look, gosh, these are so rare. Let's have the original medieval gates on the rood screen. Super, and still with so much colour on them. And then as we go up, we have this sort of barber poling. Can you see? Sort of gold and black barber poling. And then all of this glorious colour for the tracery here. red and green and lots of gilt. Now above it, it's all been marbled. This dates from the 18th century. And we'll see in a minute that this church has another unusual thing. It has a marble communion table, which was given at the beginning of the 18th century. And it appears that the upper part of the rood screen was marbled to blend in with that. Okay, so here is the south parclose screen. As you can see, probably easier to look on the other side, but let's look inside the south parclose screen. So I'm just going to go round into the south aisle and through the southern door. Again, this has its gate. Quite extraordinary. Now, just look in here. Wow, it's such a wonderful thing. The east end here has a stone altar. Now, the altars were put back again in the 1920s, but it's original mensa, and it appears to be from this chapel. And above it is this glorious thing, a reredos niche, which would have contained presumably a painted or maybe an alabaster altarpiece. Let's have a closer look at that. Now, this chapel is the Angevine Chapel. Now, the Angevines are the people who paid for these parclose screens, and this is where they're all buried. So down on the floor here, we have a lovely 16th century indent with the Angevine coat of arms on the top. Look closely at that, there you go. Various sort of ledger slabs. Another incised slab here. Somebody called, let's have a look, who's he? I can't remember off the top of my head. His name is Roger de Hagnaby, so, well, 15th century, very early 15th century. Another indent next to it. And then this fabulous, fabulous brass of the early 15th century to Robert Hayton. Hic jacet Robertus Hayton, armiger. When did he die? He died on the 25th day of February 1425. And there he is, the lion at his feet. I remember rubbing this brass when I was about 10. Absolutely fantastic. There wasn't as many bat droppings on it then. So we have this tiny little parclose screen enclosing this small chapel here, where Mass would have been celebrated, presumably for the Angevine family. There's no evidence of there ever having been a chantry chapel here, but there was certainly their mortuary chapel, and I assume that they would have had Masses here. And there's this reredos. Can you imagine? Of course, the altarpiece itself is gone, but this wonderful, wonderful surround. Oh, this must be very late 14th century, maybe early 15th century. This gorgeous tracery and these florons at the side, two pinnacles all crocketed. Great big ogee arch on the top there with a great big finial. And then above us here is a 15th century roof. So with the bosses on it. You know, this church really is the church that's got it all. It really is. Now let's have a look at these parclose screens in a little bit more detail. We'll come where there's some light. And you'll see why they are so unusual. So, up at the top here, there's no tracery. But what there is, and I can put my camera right up here so you can see, but what there is are these fabulous Renaissance style carvings. There's two figures there that look like the man in the moon. And the Angevine coat of arms. Now we know exactly who that is. It's John Angevine and his wife Cicely Hildyard. They didn't get married until the 1550s, which is one of the ways you can date this. These wonderful hybrid figures here. Oh, these are so astonishing. It's quite a few years since I've seen these. It's really nice to have a look at them again. So you come along. And that's just the south parclose. Now, the north parclose, which is exactly the same date, has even more splendid carvings on it. Past the Victorian pulpit. So you've got this wonderful Renaissance foliage and strapwork here. And then you have this in the centre. There's an image of the head of Christ with two grotesque heads peering at him on either side. It's followed by more stockwork and more hybrids on the side. It's going to be a 20-minute video that we're going off. And then these two sort of men in the moon. I always think that one looks like Kenneth Williams, her matron. So Kenneth Williams on the parclose screen. Now this has been prefabricated, this parclose screen, because all the way along the rail you have got carpenter's marks. Number 3, number 4, so it's been prefabricated and brought here. But whoever put this in, well, we know who put this in, the Angevine family, were clearly influenced by the height of Renaissance fashion. So a couple of conjoined wivens there by the looks of it. Some more strap work. Some have been replaced. And then these two, which I think must be the donors themselves. The coat of arms of the Angevine family, with a head of a woman and a man on either side of it. Oh, and look, as we're looking up, more medieval roofs. I just love it. With bosses all the way along in this case. Absolutely splendid. Oh, and if we haven't got enough medieval woodwork, we have a nice set of medieval benches all the way along here, down in the north aisle. The simple ones here, they had their poppy heads removed, which is a bit sad. And these ones, just little castellated tops and tracery ends. They're very jolly. Again, on their brick bases. I love that. Nice to see that. So one of the things about this building, it's so full of texture, a wonderful use of varied materials, and it hasn't been over-restored either. A 9th, 14th century font here, with a 19th century, early 19th century lid. Goodness, this is such an exciting building. It really is. So let's go into the chancel. We've not had a look in there yet. There's so much to see here. So moving east, those parcloses again. This fabulous, fabulous screen. This building, you can just imagine what it must have been like in the Middle Ages. There's very little difference in some respect. Looking through into that little chapel there, you can imagine standing there, can't you, sort of hearing mass, leaning up against the parclose, watching the elevation of the host occurring at the little side altar there, just gazing on and then waiting for the elevation to occur at the high altar. You got the full set here, haven't you? It's really quite extraordinary. And then we'll go into the chancel, so through the original gates, and we'll open those. The other thing to note, of course, is how ridiculous it is to think of the rood screen as a barrier. It's quite clearly a frame. It's a frame. It's intended to frame whatever goes on beyond. These are all frames. They're all intended to frame. Yes, they are to create a sort of division between maybe the secular realm and the sacred realm, but they're primarily there to frame the action that goes on at the high altar. You can see absolutely everything. They emphasize it. So we're going from the secular realm into the heavenly realm, into the chancel. Well, let's say it's more of a secular realm these days because it's full of really rather nice 18th century monuments. But we'll look first east to where the high altar would have been. There's still a couple of image brackets on either side. One there. This is All Saints, All Hallows Church. So there would have been an image of the Mother of God, of Mary, the Virgin Mary, and of All Hallows. Oh, there's a sedilia. Now this is earlier, much earlier in fact. Bits of Norman work in here have been incorporated into a later sedilia. Lovely to see some really nice bits of, some nice Norman capitals there on that. Very fine indeed. That's one of those image brackets. Now then, another rarity here, we look in this direction, is this church has a marble communion table from the 18th century. Extraordinary, not many of those around. Now this marble communion table was in fact given to the church by this lady up here. Mary Newcomen. Now, she was married twice. First of all, she was married to Nicholas Newcomen of Theddlethorpe, and that's his monument there. Okay, that's his monument there. And after he died, she then married this man here, the Honourable Charles Barty, who is the youngest son of the Earl of Lindsey. Now, he was an MP. As the youngest son of a peer, maybe his finances were a bit dodgy. Anyway, he marries the widow Newcomen, who was about 20 years older than him, and retired to this little backwater here. He then married again after she died. They're all buried here, both of her husbands. This fabulous monument. Let's step back so you can see the full height of it. This fabulous and very fashionable monument that the Honourable Charles Barty put up to him and his Mary widow by Andrew Carpenter. Really good quality piece. Fantastic busts and the Barty arms on the top there. A couple of flaming urns. So, 18th century altar rails, presumably en suite with that marble communion table. Extraordinary thing to survive. And all the ledger slabs for all of that family across the width of the church. Wow. The atmosphere in here is extraordinary. Let's just look west. A wonderful spring light at the moment. It's been a beautiful day through this 15th century rood screen. It's wonderful to see the back of the tracery there, isn't it? So we've got missing, of course, the rood loft. But still, it's a wonderful and evocative building. So I'm just going to take you to the back again for one last look east. And that's where I'll leave you. So I'm going to go take some photographs now, because the photographs I had of this building I lost very stupidly. Let's have a look east. Just take in the breathtaking interior of All Saints Church in Theddlethorpe in Lincolnshire. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.